Hey everybody, how's it going? I thought I would take a minute and break down for you exactly what goes through my noggin when it comes to deciding who gets what role in the show. This isn't required viewing, but I thought it might make for good insight, might also kind of help deal if maybe you don't get the role that you don't like or whatever. You might wonder what the reasoning is. Let me break it down for you. The three things I've always said are behind every casting decision I've ever made are ability, attitude, and availability. And the overall mission statement is that everyone deserves an equal shot. So everybody starts at 0. And then I factor in the following. For ability, that means as far as a musical is concerned, what's your singing and voice quality like? Like, does your voice fit the role that you're looking for? Is it the kind of voice that a whole auditorium is going to want to listen to? And as far as showmanship or show ladyship, are you able to seize the attention of the audience? Are you able to fill the needs of a role? These are important things to consider, but they're not the only thing. For attitude, this can be a very important thing, considering that we're going over a process that takes months to do. And that could be things like your general level of positivity. Working with somebody who is miserable is a miserable experience. So we keep a close eye out on people who match that kind of emotional maturity. Are you prepared? That factors into attitude, because are you coming into this callback with the expectation that you're going to get a role, or with the belief that I'm going to do my very best job and do absolutely everything that I can? It's the second type of person that we want in the lead role. And then as far as availability goes, availability is the killer, because even though I might have the sweetest and most talented person, if you can't be a part of the program because of schedule conflicts, maybe other things you're doing like a job or another activity, or perhaps your grades are low enough that it could cause eligibility problems, well, then unfortunately we do need to take that into account. But as far as a callback goes, this is the dead last thing that I look at. Instead, we're going to focus on this. Okay, so keeping all of those three things in mind, let's take a look at what the process is when you're determining, let's say, 3 different people that are auditioning for the same role. They're all here at callbacks. What they did in auditions doesn't matter. We're just looking at what we see in the callback alone, and that's an important thing to remember. No matter how you did in previous shows or in previous auditions, everyone deserves an equal shot. So we are only looking at just the callback. Now, when I've got these 3 students and they come up and they sing that song, one of the very first things that I'm going to see is because I told everybody this, if you can, memorize the songs. That shows a level of preparedness. So let's say that student 1 and 2, they did memorize their song. So that's, boop, definitely points in their favor. Now, student number 3 didn't. This student chose to read off of the music, and that's fine. They didn't lose any points, but it didn't gain them any points either. Now, when it came to the singing and voice quality, everybody came to callbacks because you've got a good voice, right? But sometimes those voices don't always match up super well. We'll say that student number 3 killed it, came out with a really, really great song, all right, and did a really super awesome job with it. And student number 1 did okay. You know, it's not going to bring people to their feet like the singing, but, you know, it was pretty good. So up they go. Notice student 1 and 3 are now on even footing. But student number 2, let's say that they got a really nice alto voice, and this is like a soprano song. It doesn't mean that they don't have a good voice, but it's not a good fit. So as far as their singing quality goes, that's not something I might keep in mind. All right? Now, something else that we were taking into account is when you were actually performing these scenes, were you performing them? Were you like being the character on stage? Or were you just like standing there singing like in a concert? Like I said, I wanted to make sure that you guys were acting this out as you're performing. It put student 3 at a disadvantage because student number 3, well, they were standing there and they're hampered by the paper, right? So they did an okay job. So, you know, I'd give them like half a point maybe. Student number 2, while not necessarily a gorgeous singer, was really into it. All right, like was really singing like into the role really, really well, which impressed me to the point that it gained 2 points. And student number 1 now has did a pretty good job. They got into it, but maybe they were a little nervous, you know, and they just kind of held back. So I'd only give them a 1 point. Well, this is tricky. So by that combination of things, you put these 3 students all at the same level. They got their various positives and weaknesses. But some other things that you need to take into account would be availability. And when it comes to availability, this might shoot down some people's chances. If I got 3 people with even abilities, let's say that student number 1 is involved in another activity and they can only make 2 or 3 rehearsals a week, that's a problem. And as a result, student number 1 might be out of the running based on that entirely. Student number 2 or 3 might be having some problems with grades. That's not a killer. But if I look back and I see that that's a regular issue, then that could potentially put their chances in jeopardy. But some other things that I would just keep in mind is I would just kind of weigh and balance and get down to the real nitty-gritty. All right, which one of these people was the best fit for the role? Doesn't mean that student number 3 or student number 2, one is worse than the other. One just might naturally be better. And let's say that student 2 just did a better job overall. Student 2 gets the role. Now, something to keep in mind is what if student 2 had never auditioned in the first place? Student number 3 would have gotten that role. And sometimes that's just the luck of the draw. And the closing statement I want to make to you guys is this, is that you can't control who comes out for a show. And you can't ever take it personally when somebody is better than you, even though it stings and it hurts. But the point is you guys got called to callbacks because we thought this is a student who could do this role. And I want you to remember that. So whether or not you get the role, or perhaps you are put into as a understudy for a role, just know we're all really proud of you. And that there's a lot of reasons behind the decisions that get made. And it's not, I like so-and-so. It is a calculated approach.
Best practice group session.
Now that that's done, it is a calculated approach that is made not only by myself, but also Mr. Wilson, Mr. Noble, Ms. Haygood, and Mrs. Fieser. And as always, I strongly encourage you to come and talk to me if you are feeling upset, and I will absolutely sit down and talk with you. No judgment, just honesty. All right, guys. Very proud of you. Can't wait for this year's show.